familiar with Appa. Do you know anything about this player?
No, I've not heard about the player. I've seen him on the floor, but not really talked about the results that he's had so far. Looks like Strifecro currently running a Spirit Echo Control Shaman.
Yeah.
It looks like it has to be that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a deck that Strifecro has really loved playing. It's any sort of grindy deck that generates a lot of value. He loves fighting for board. He loves having additional resources. But in this match, he did start with a bit of a deficit. He actually got a game loss due to having multiple standard legal decks of the same class inside of the game at this point. So in this tournament, you can only have the one available. It's one of the ways to have accountability. And so because of that, he's at a deficit to start, but he's evened it up.
And not only that, but he's taking it 2-1, I believe, because this is 20 damage pushing face on Appa, and that is going to be it. One of the things, this deck is the deck that I think is the most powerful sleeper deck of the event.
Why is that?
I think people are underrating or pigeonholing Shaman in this weird, you have to play for tempo, pure value, elemental, play some Jades, and just grind your opponent out through tempo plays. This deck is saying something entirely different. It's saying, I'm going to hero power as much as I can early game, get my thing from below discounted to 0, play them Spirit Echo, they still cost 0 when they come back, replay them for free. You have the Jade package sprinkled in with Aya Blackbot to give you more Jades, bigger Jades as time passes, and you also play N'Zoth at the top end as a win condition against control. And because you're playing so passively in the early game, this is what I love about it, you're able to use your board clears with no drawback. Something like Volcano doesn't hit your minions. It only hits there. So you've got Maelstrom Portal, Lightning Storms, and Volcano. 6 cards to clean up the opponent's board. And the Jade Claws, of course, which is great against aggro. Jade Lightning helps you contend with some of that mid-game push. This deck covers a lot of angles at once. And I really think this deck is going to come out as one of those big sleeper decks in the event.
Well, I mean, he's looking like he's winning games with it. So, you know, I'm fairly convinced at this point. Strifecro had a fantastic start to this tournament early on, and you know, I'd love to see where this performance ended up going. But as we get into game 3, game 4, it looks like Ancestral Spirit on Appa's side. Is he playing a very similar list to this?
It's probably going to be more of a Faceless Manipulator type list. I've seen the Ancestral Spirit played alongside Faceless Manipulator more with Earth Elementals, whereas the Spirit Echo build errs more towards Servant of Kalimos with a Jade package a little bit, and you know, the whole Servant of Kalimos giving you Kalimos. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I hear it's all right for the Servant to some of the Master.
So one of the big things, though, I don't know if Strifecro is running the N'Zoth list. That is a possibility that he's not. I mean, there's a dozen ways to tweak the deck, but the core essence of the deck is still the same, where you are running a value-based deck.
And Appa holds on to Devolve in this, and if this is this pure Spirit Echo deck, this is actually a really smart choice. When that Death Rattle hits all the opposing minions, Devolve simply peels that away. It's almost like a Mass Dispel effect, if you will, but at the same time, it has the benefit of downgrading the minion very often as well. So I think this is a very clever choice if he expects this to be a really grindy game.
Yeah, it's a really good choice to keep Devolve one of the best cards in the format right now in terms of countering a wide array of decks, because Paladin is especially weak to it. The Murlocs, although great when paired with one another, tend to falter when you devolve. Spike Ridge Steed, completely negated. Tyrion, goodbye. You've already got all the answers in the form of Transformation Effect and Shaman, and Devolve is one of the best ones at that.
Yeah, I've yet to be convinced of Devolve personally.
Okay, fair enough.
I see this card stuck in hand a lot.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of cards that giddy up. They start applying pressure, put our opponent to the test. You have the answer to my stuff right now.
Yeah,
I love that style.
I don't mind it. It's got to make sense. You take the initiative, and the opponent oftentimes does not have the answer.
Yeah, I don't mind the slower styles either. I love to play grindy games as well, but you know, nowhere in between. I don't like the mid-range like stuff.
Oh man, so Appa running the Stonehill Defenders. What are we fetching? White Eyes, Earth Elemental.
Thing from below.
Thing from below. So the 3 minions you're looking to put Ancestral Spirit on with Faceless Manipulator are found in the Stonehill Defender. This card has got to be one of the biggest surprises of the set.
Yeah, I remember talking with Zalea a little bit about it before the set was officially released, and you know, both him and I pegged Stonehill Defender as a very valuable card. The sort of the parallel we drew was it reminded us of more neutral shield block than anything else. It deals more damage and it replaces itself. You know, those are typically good cards. Yeah. And in the Journey to Ankoro meta, I think this card has more than proven its weight. It has been a fantastic card. You know, lessons learned in the way that card games work. Oftentimes, things that draw things are good things.
Pretty good, yeah. If they cycle themselves, that's great. So the fact that you're getting a 1/4 body on the board that's defensive is a pretty big deal. This card without taunt would probably be a lot weaker across the board, just given that it lets your opponent run free and you're not really soaking up any damage.
Yeah, looking at this matchup as we come into
Sure.
some turns where combat starts to become relevant, where do you think a player is actually finding the edge in this matchup? Because if you're playing a similar style, when do you have an opportunity to actually begin an assault?
So one of the big things about the matchup, and I'm not sure exactly what their list contain exactly, is you have to be very wary of transformation effects. So if you play a combo card like Spirit Echo, actually Spirit Echo has the benefit very often of being able to be initiated on your own. So you have a board, they have a board, you play Spirit Echo, you trade, you get them back right away. Whereas with Ancestral Spirit, you're hoping that they pop it and then you get the value. So you're more vulnerable to Hex in that way, especially since you tend to buff one target with a ton of things and hedge your bets into one guy. Whereas I think the Spirit Echo build tends to generate even more value over time.
But a third Earth Elemental.
There you go. I mean, if you picked one, pick two. If it's in your deck and you discover it, take it.
He didn't take Thing from Below
Sure.
from the first Stonehill Defender, so the Ancestral Spirit very much on Appa's mind as we move through this game. The more Earth Elementals he's got, the more likely it is one of them eventually sticks. But I liked what you're talking about with immediately getting the value from Spirit Echo.
Yeah.
It's a card where you look at it and it almost feels like it protects your minions, but people forget that proactively using those cards is a big deal. And so I'm actually curious how much merit there is to leaving some of your opponent's board up and building board tension, at times risking a Bloodlust or a Flametongue Totem turning the board around in order to get that instantaneous value so that transforms aren't a big deal against you.
Yeah, I'm wondering what Strifecro's list contains exactly, because it's running some of the Elemental package as well. Fire Elemental is one of those cards that is run in Elemental Shaman, but not necessarily alongside the whole Spirit Echo shenanigans. So he's made some interesting cuts. I'm sure there's a lot of one-ofs in the deck that are making their way in here.
The thing I know more than anything else is playing Strifecro back in the 2014 days of beta is that this guy loves tempo minions. If it brawls and it fights for board, that is the kind of card he likes to play. He was one of the first players I'd seen that built a successful Shaman deck that didn't rely on getting massive endgame value. He had Harvest Golems and Gnomish Engineers just to make sure he stuck stuff to the board and had enough gas.
I remember those days. Those were simpler days where you could play a format 2-4 that draws. You're like, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
This is working out all right.
Now, you kids and your fancy Stonehill Defenders, back in my day, we drew with 2-4 Gnomish Engineers.
Was good enough.
Gnomish Inventor?
Yeah, Argus
Gnomish
did.
Inventor, not Engineer.
Oh, that's right.
We had to have a 50% chance to draw with Nat Pagel.
Yeah. One of the things that I love about this, we see the Manatide here, but this deck has...
I really want to talk about this.
Go.
Manatide Totem is a dangerous card to leave on board for your opponent. If Appa can protect this Manatide Totem, that means he's going to be way ahead in card economy. The one thing Strifecro hates doing is not utilizing his mana properly. He's already made a prerequisite with the Servant, so he wants to play it right now, but at the same token, he wants to kill that Manatide Totem. He did not have the option to do both. He's electing to go with the development and leaving that Manatide up. This is the kind of play that can be dangerous, but at the same time can yield giant benefits when the game keeps panning out. If Strifecro is able to take advantage of the fact that he has this development, that is the turn to look at right there, that he didn't kill Manatide Totem, that he did play this 4-5.
That's actually a really good point. I think it's also something of a, giving a respect as well to the fact that his deck is capable of coming back from a card disadvantage position where he thinks, hey, you get a card from Manatide, I get a card from Servant of Kalamos, we're fine here. I don't have to commit more resources. Knowing full well that Appa has board clears in the deck, one of the things you don't want to do is go all in on the board yourself and commit a Flametongue to what is, at the end of the day, some time of marginal value. The more minions you have on the board as well, the more value you can extract out of the Flametongue Totem.
And it looks like he's about to reap the benefits of this too. I mean, he's got wonderful plays set up for this turn. He's got multiple ways to actually fight for the board. He could take value right now with Flametongue Totem and simply chew through this Earth Elemental. And so suddenly that tempo that he invested in is paying dividends because Appa just overloaded himself for 3. So the fact that he's playing for the development advantage, I think has got a lot of benefit as this game continues to pan out. But here, looking a little bit tougher.
That's not too bad. You do get a good trade. Keep in mind, again, that Appa is overloaded. And the reason you're killing the Earth Elemental, it's a priority to kill, is because there's always the possibility of Ancestral Spirit. And because we have Caster Vision, of course, Strifecro doesn't have Hex. He is the one who's on the the onus is on him to respond to the threats that Appa's putting down. And he knows that in that deck, threats are plenty.
Yeah.
There are a lot of them. And so, yeah, you know, committing this Flame Tongue, giving a Lightning Storm, maybe giving a Volcano if the opponent has it, that hurts a little bit, but it's better than letting the Earth Elemental stick around and then get Ancestral Spirited to come back.
Notice that he also took the Frozen Crusher from the Servant of Kalamos there. He was simply concerned with finding the most amount of stats that he could from a single card. You know, the fact that it freezes itself isn't as big of a deal to Strifecro because he knows that this game is going to go on for a long time. He's not looking to put Appa to the test and really end the game as quickly as possible. It's that time after time you threaten damage, you threaten damage, you threaten damage, and over time trying to build that value up. Appa's largely trying to do that exact same thing.
And now the Hex comes down on Aya Blackbot, denying one of the most valuable cards in the matchup. Precisely because if there's an Azoth in the deck or a Spirit Echo, you are not only taking away the Jade Golem that comes out, but the ability to resurrect that minion and bring it back to the hand. So suddenly Strifecro finds himself with one of his key cards to the strategy at the very least, gone. His hand is filled with okay tempo-ish plays, but they don't lend themselves very well to what the game plan of the deck is.
Well, I think the Frozen Crusher here is actually... it's pretty solid.
Oh, yeah, it is.
There's not an effective way for Appa to handle the minion without using one of his major effects. And Devolve still will produce a 5-cost minion from the Crusher in this spot. Earth Elemental is going to get run straight over by the Frozen Crusher. This was a brilliant take from Strifecro on this minion that is largely considered one of the worst cards in Journey to Ungoro because it freezes itself. You know, when you find yourself in tempo battles, that effect is a huge detriment. But when you're in strictly value battles, the bigger the minion, the better.
Yeah. I'm not too sure, though, when I look at Frozen Crusher, how Appa is going to respond to it effectively without using Devolve. There's just not much in the deck that can answer, or at least want to answer this.
Exactly.
You wouldn't Hex this. Probably not. At the very least, you probably wouldn't. I mean, I can't imagine you would. Okay, let us roll the dice, and...
it's not even that big of a downgrade.
Okay, I'll take a 5-6 over an 8-8, no problem, doesn't freeze itself.
Well, if Strifecro can get through the Earth Elemental effectively, that means that 5 damage now clocked turn after turn.
Yeah, and he can. The issue is he's going to have to expend some of his own resources in the process. Going back to what I was saying earlier, you don't want to assume your board is going to stick around in the matchup. The least safe thing in the matchup is your board. Yeah. So yes, you can say, okay, let's Fire Elemental, try to set up some clear with my weapon and take some value trades. No, you don't want to do that. You just want to make sure you replace whatever you put down with something else, and that's it. Very passive turns are acceptable.
Yeah, oftentimes you're simply just looking to get the most out of a card. And so in this case, Devolve happened. Wasn't really that big of a deal, but now he's, once again, threatening more chip damage. He's got a 6/5 back online. This is basically the exact same turn Appa was just in, except now he's overloaded for 3.
And Appa, with the Earth Elemental left in the hand as well, still has a target for his eventual Ancestral Spirits if he wants to use it that way. There are other targets in the deck, as I've spoken about, right? White Eyes tends to be present in there. You can always get an Halaziel Ancestral Spirit. It doesn't look like much, but it's a 4/6 body, and that on its own can be enough to carry you towards the game. And then Think from Below as well.
My major concern here is just the value of the individual cards that are happening here. Appa's cards are way bigger than Strifecro's right now. And he's not really in a position where he's threatening to end the game. So Appa is free to continue to take this kind of slow defensive stance and end up with the last resource in a lot of these positions. If that's the case, Strifecro is going to have to either find a way to start delivering a lot of pressure or find a way to start generating value on his own.
And there we go.
Stonehill Defender plus Servant of Kalamos are great ways to start that.
Yeah, I think the deck, I don't know what Strifecro's package is, right? But if it's anything like Tides of Time, he's going to be looking for White Eyes.
Just anything big. The bigger, the better,
yeah.
I think is the situation that we're in right now.
And White Eyes has special synergy with N'Zoth, of course, which is the reason you'd like it over something else. But at the same time, I'll take an Earth Elemental if you offer it.
Are you certain he's running N'Zoth?
I mean, I've seen most lists that run the Jade package with the Elemental Value package also pack an N'Zoth with White Eyes.
I think Psychotron actually has some merit here as well. The fact that the Divine Shield's fairly hard to take care of from Appa's perspective.
Okay.
But the Earth Elemental is, again, it's just a bigger thing. So at this point, look at what Strifecro's going to have to do to get his board cleared. I mean, we're looking at Volcano or like Spell Power Storm with a Maelstrom Portal. There's a lot of stuff that would have to happen here. And now he's threatening a big Bloodlust. So this is going to require attention from Appa due to the fear of this board right here. And look at the positioning as well. Primely positioned for Flame Tongue Totem. It is perfectly symmetrical where where you know, taunt affects health and attack, and
This is so beautiful. Just swap the art on these guys and we're good to go.
it's beautiful.
Yeah, Blizzard should have this thing where if you make a perfectly symmetrical board, it actually just rotates the art.
They all get +1 attack. Yeah, I agree.
Of course. If your board is symmetrical, gain +1 attack.
But then you lose the symmetry,
Math Wolf Alpha.
so they lose the +1 attack.
Well, that seems
How
awful.
do we know that rule's not there already?
That seems, wow.
So Volcano,
Mine is blown.
not entirely clearing here. So 10,
Oh, Maelstrom does it, right? I mean,
18,
Lightning Storm
19,
first, sorry.
There's 20 health on board. If he uses Maelstrom Portal and then Volcano, he's cleared the board, but you know, he kills his own minion in that spot. So he's looking to Volcano first and then evaluate what's happening afterwards. Since his roll was fairly inefficient on the Fire Elementals, going to choose the Lightning Storm here as well.
I mean, you were going to totem anyway, right? Unless you left a minion with... I feel like Lightning Storming first is cleaner, because what if the Fire Elemental ends up with 5 health and everything else dies, right? Like, you leave a 6/5 on the board, what's your play afterwards? Do you play the Earth Ellie?
I'm curious what the math works. I think it's trying to land Maelstrom Portal is what I think.
Sure.
You know, if the 1/1 stick around, not that big a deal, but Servant of Kalamos, bigger the better.
Yeah, we go. The Alakir here, not a card a lot of people are playing in their deck at all. I've seen maybe 1 or 2 in those types of builds. It tends to not be super popular, but it is the type of card. You get it, you play Flame Tongue in your deck. That's a win condition in and of itself.
It's a kind of card that's too clunky to play on its own. You know, it's why Earth Elemental is not found in these decks. If you can discover them in the right matchup, suddenly it can become a very powerful tool. But drawing that card early on can spell disaster against some of the matchups that are trying to pressure you really hard. So that's why instead he's chosen these cheap effects or these mid-size effects that can discover these things, but not necessarily something you always want to have.
And now Strifecro, on the resource plan, we spoke about how Appa was a little bit ahead in terms of resources. I feel like Strifecro is equalizing the field now. He's got the Earth Elemental in hand, he's got the Alakir. Jade Lightning deals damage and generates a 4/4, setting up as well for bigger Jades later on. He does not have infinite Jade generators. I don't think the deck has room for Jade Chieftains. I'm starting to wonder, there's no way you can find that, you know, that card in the deck without cutting some of your key elemental value cards.
It's kind of a bad card.
Yeah.
7 mana. But something to look at that I'm seeing is Appa's been spending a lot of his utility just clearing board, clearing board, clearing board. And it's been working at this point. He's got a lot of powerful stuff left to work with. If you just go on a card-by-card basis, Appa's hand is better than Strifecro's right now. But the Mana Tide Totem is threatening, like you said, to make up that advantage. So a big concern for him is finding a way to put this Mana Tide Totem in check and at the same way not give up too many resources. And so that turn right there is a big one for Strifecro. That Mana Tide sticks around, and now things are going to get dangerous for Appa.
Yeah, Strifecro's got the ability to clean up the 7/8. I mean, that's 3 Earth Elementals played on Appa's side. Strifecro's played, you know, he's got 1 in hand, he can play whenever he feels like. He's got the ability to use the 4/5 body or a double Jade Lightning turn if he feels like it, or a Storm Jade Lightning. He's got options. He's got everything he wants.
And we're still in a value battle as the game's moving on. I mean, we're past turn 10, and players are still trying to fight to see who's landing that first significant threat. You know, Strifecro's gotten in some chip damage, but Shaman is very good at stabilizing its life total at a relatively low point if it's not under, you know, a pure direct damage assault. So when Strifecro gives up these Jade Lightnings here, that's a lot of reach that you're seeing gone. And in fact, I'd be surprised if he didn't use Lightning Storm in this spot, even though it's fairly inefficient. He gets to connect 4 and he gets to save the other Jade Lightning.
Yeah, and most importantly, when do you get a better one? That's precisely one of the issues in the matchups is your board clears tend to not be that good when you're already ahead. And he's developing on the board enough health that Volcano does not clear fully everything. And that's also another consideration.
And Harrison Jones is a dead draw, so Appa now is starting to be under some real pressure. But again, so he's got tools that can fight against this.
Yeah.
The overload for 3. That's a big factor right here. You know, I was looking at Primordial Drake Maelstrom Portal.
Sure, that's an easy one.
It's not possible if you don't have the mana for it.
And you still can't do that with Genie Water Speaker, so the turn might have to consist of a Hero Power, Hot Spring Guardian, pass, hey, then we're clearing? That seems awfully weak.
Maybe a Jinyu plus the Hot Spring. I mean, his health is starting to become a concern to him, but if he's not fighting the board position, it means that Bloodlust and Flame Tongue are super dangerous.
Yeah.
If he's not taking care of his health total, it means that Jade Lightning or just any charge damage, you know, maybe Alakir is in hand, those become significant threats. See, his game plan isn't making a huge impact on this turn, but I think this is his best that he's got.
Yeah, gotta make yourself healthy given the size of the board. Even without Bloodlust, this is still a scary board to handle. regardless of whether or not you have a Bloodlust coming up or a Flame Tongue Totem, these minions are big enough that you're going to be clocked over 2 turns.
Yeah, but now this does shut down the push potential from Strifecro this turn, so we're back to that same spot we were just in, fighting for value.
How do you feel about just an Alec here after trading? You're protecting the Mana Tide, you're protecting your 4/4, you're ready to go.
It's hard for me to really, figure out what I would want to do in these situations. I know I'm not like hyper familiar with the intricacies of their deck. If Strifecro does in fact have N'Zoth, he's definitely got a lot of incentive for simply extending the game. If he doesn't have N'Zoth or he doesn't have Bloodlust, he's going to have to find damage at some point.
Yeah, I think just this is the type of board that the Jade package in this type of Shaman generates, where you have the usual elemental package, you've got enough card draw, enough removal to get yourself at these spots, and the Stonehill Defender generates value, Servant of Calamos generates value. You're almost never running out of resources, despite not being purely a value deck.
Well, remember, we talked about Appa using all those board clears. Well, now he needs them, and he needs them with Halazil as well. You get that full heal, plus he'd be wiping out the board position. Suddenly, Strifecro, turn after turn after turn, has just played threat after threat after threat. And none of them are huge. There's 4/5s and 5/5s, and eventually that damage really adds up. Appa's been spending just simply to fight off the board pressure. Now he does not have an effective way to fight back.
Yeah, and you can see the attrition game that Strifecro is playing. The deck that he's got is perfectly tailored to play an attrition game.
It's just the way that he loves to play the game. He's been playing this way for as long as I can remember. And at every single step of the way, he's been one of the front runners where this style of play is concerned. He's finding new tech choices. He's navigating his turns really well. And again, this literally ties back to when he didn't kill that Mana Tide Totem and he played Servant of Calamos instead. Since then,
the tempo's been exactly. He identified a spot where he thought he could turn the tables around and just make sure he's got the aggressor's advantage. It looks like on board there's 18, I believe, with the Hex
that's
Storm,
lethal with
the
Hex
Fire
Storm,
Plume.
Fire Plume Phoenix.
That is it. With the Fire Plume Phoenix, we're just closing it.
Wow, finds lethal in a fairly weird way. How often do you Lightning Storm a 0/1 taunt? But it'll get the job done. Strifecro 3-1 over Appa. And a fantastic performance from him. Again, it was foregoing the kill on the Mana Tide Totem that really set him up for these positions.
So I don't think Strifecro was running a list as similar as that of Tides of Time, for instance, which I know they like to play similar decks in terms of control playstyle, but his version is very much about the elemental package being the focus. And I'm not sure if the N'Zoth fits in that one, as you were mentioning.
It's about brawling for the board.
Yeah.
Strifecro likes to get in there and get dirty.
Seems good.
Start doing the work with your hands.
Stonehill Defender.
Strifecro's a man. Fights for that board. I remember back in the day, he would just play Sun Fury on turn 2. Start punching.
How does that guy fight? Look at him. He's so cuddly.
Well, that's what the game's for.
Okay, I see.
He doesn't want to actually fight. He wants to make-believe fight.
He's pretty nice.
Just like TJ.
Speaking of TJ, how about TJ?
This guy's an idiot. Oh, whoa, what's up, TJ?
He's muted again. I kind of like that. I've gotten used to it at this point.
It makes me kind of sad, actually.
Yeah, how about that TJ guy?
What an idiot.
Yeah, what an idiot.
Just like me.
Man, I think that was the last match for round 9. So
sure, we
are now finished with the Swiss portion of the DreamHack Austin Grand Prix.
Are you excited?
I'm pumped, man.
Yeah.
We have to try and calculate the last tiebreakers and see who's exactly going to make it in the top 16. So those will come in a bit. But dog ended perfect, 9-0.
Whoa. 9-0. What was the game score, though?
No.
27-0.
27.
I don't know. I don't know what his game score was. I don't know what his game score was.
Yeah, but yeah, it's a dog ended perfect. Not a result a lot of people may have expected, but Dog's been around for a long time. He's got some experience under that belt that holds in his shirt.
Hopefully he's wrong about the whole first in, first out thing where he just makes it in at 9-0 and then drops out round 1.
Yeah.
That would be unfortunate.
It'd be kind of prophetic if he did that, though.
I guess, yeah, he would be a prophet, at least in my heart.
Yeah. But there's a lot of people floating around that 7-2 mark. So there's going to be a few of them that do not make the cut for the top 16. Amnesiac and Chalky, who I interviewed up here yesterday, who've been showing a little bit on stream as well. They both won their matches, so they're at 7-2, but they're right on the edge.
Yeah.
So they might not make it into that top. Reynad looking good, Trump looking good, Eloise looking good. So it looks like the Tempo Storm folk are poised to have 4 people in the top 16.
That is massive.
That's insane. The thing I do want to touch on is that Amnesiac started out yesterday 3-1. Chalky started out 4-0. And so that's kind of the sweet spot for where your tiebreakers get just over that hump. You know, there's some people, they start out, you know, maybe 1-1 or they start at 1-2 and then they rack up a bunch of wins in a row. That happens very often at these styles of tournaments. At the 2-loss bracket, sometimes you're catching opponents that they didn't quite build their lineup right, or maybe they were unhappy with something or uncomfortable with some things. Your wins can come slightly easier than it would be if you're sitting at that 6-0 spot and they got those great decks and they know everything perfect. So that's really where that sweet spot is. I think it's like right at about 3-1 or 4-0. Your tiebreaker's often just enough to squeeze through. So the top 16 cut here, I cannot wait for this because the field has just been so stacked. This tournament.
A couple of the guys that we saw, sort of the up-and-comers that we saw at the beginning of the day that were 6-0, are still poised. We got Ryder, Mr. Lego, and Allen. Those 3 guys started the day 6-0. They're going to make it through. Terrence M won his round 9 match as well, so he'll be in the top 16. So if Chalky makes it in through his tiebreakers, which it's looking close, if he does, he's going to be like 15th, 16th. And then Terrence M makes it.
Could have a repeat final.
Could have a repeat final, which is crazy.
So sick.
That would be insane if we got there, honestly. I just want to see Terrence again in the finals, vindicated against Nazoth Paladin last year.
Yeah, Chalky for Terrence finals, and Terrence takes it this time, maybe.
That would be beautiful.
Yeah, just trading back and forth. Next year, Chalky for Terrence again. Chalky will take
it. It would be a lot closer to Chalky's norm to take 2nd place than it would be to actually win the event. So
True fact.
I'm really looking forward to that as well.
Can confirm.
Yeah, but one thing is that we had an incredibly stacked field at the beginning of this tournament. Well over 200 players from all across the world. We had all 3 world champions competing, Firebattles, Kaka, and Pavel. Pavel finished 7-2, but his tiebreakers aren't that great, so he probably make it to the top 16. But it just goes to show you the scope of the strength of the field here and how impressive it is for the players that did make it into, or that will make it into the top 16, that they had to go through this many rounds of Swiss and that many tough opponents.
To me, that's just part of the beautiful part of the majors that take place. There's a lot of points up for grabs for these players as they move into the 2017 season. And now with the change that's been made to the last call, the #1 point earner in each region, they get into the World Championship. So you have a lot of incentive to fight for those points all year long. A big win early on can put you off to that big lead and give you an idea of where you need to be putting your efforts. Maybe you need to attend another major to keep up with someone else who's in the points race. They've done well. Maybe you just need to focus on your ladder play and try to grind out those top 10 finishes and pad that lead. But the first tournament here has drawn so much attention because of its importance to the overall standings in the year.
Top 16 does guarantee you HCT points, at least 2. And that's, I believe, 12th through 16th. Top 4, I think, gets you 8 points. And winning this gives you 15 HCT points.
Yeah, that's a lot of Open Cup grinds.
That's 5.
Yeah, it's like more than 5. You can only get points from 1 Open Cup a month. So winning a major almost qualifies you for a championship by itself. If you finish Legend the 3 months as well, that's 18 points, which for Americas this season will probably be enough. For Asia Pacific would be enough. For Europe, probably not. Europe's going to be around 20-something.
Europe certainly has, I think, a broader range of just general competitive players. I go and play on that server. There's 15,000, 18,000 Legend players. You play in Americas, close about 6,000, 7,000.
We're up to 10,000 this month. Actually, like a little bit above 10,000. I don't know if the ranked floors help with that, but that's a big increase in the influx of points given to people.
Yeah, but great cast, guys. It was a cool 9 rounds of Swiss. We talked about the scope of the tournament, over 200 players, and now it's going to be down to 16. Before we jump into that round of 16, before we get those tiebreakers sorted out and have that lineup, we are going to have to go to a quick break. But guys, do not go anywhere. You're not going to want to miss it. Round of 16 coming up right after this.